finally joined me in the conversation with a friend, a mentor, a guide, somebody I truly look up to, in terms of what she's been able to do as a leader, as a mother, as a daughter, as a wife. And, she epitomizes in some way. Can women have it all? Well, possibly they can. I think being clear on the path of defining what all means is what Kritika really stands for us. So I've already taken you through her stupendous and a very remarkable career over the few decades, or probably a couple of decades. Welcome, Kirthiga, and lovely to have you here. I think as you and I get started with this conversation, we certainly need to be mindful of time because the chemistry is stupendous, and I'm sure we can go on and on because there's so much to cover. But welcome here. So delighted to have you today.
Anu, so excited to be here at Ignite 2021. I can't wait for the audience to benefit from the introductions, the insights, and the inspiration that you and your team have put together for them through this session.
Thank you. And you've been, founding advisor for us in many ways. So, it makes it even more special for us to have you here for the 2021 special edition of Ignite. So lots in the audience, we did a little bit of a poll about what would they like to know about you. And I'm sure there was furious, Googling happening about, what you've done. So there's plenty out there, what you've done, what you've achieved. Tell us a little bit about what's not out there in a Fortune magazine and a Google search engine, which has been a critical driver of your journey. And that's what I think the audience would really, really like to know about.
What a lovely question. Um, Perhaps I'll share one reflection each from the personal side and from the professional side. On the personal side, I actually am in India as I have this interaction with you. This is my first visit post COVID. So I'm seeing my mom after 20 plus months in Chennai, and it is truly a delight. So if you see a big glow on me, an extra big glow on me, it's also because I'm in India. I've just seen my mom. And as I look at my mom, I think that story of that generational change is a story for me of optimism and responsibility, Anu, in that my mother did not have an opportunity to finish her high school education because her parents said, Beti, you know enough math to do the grocery bill and the laundry bill. And so, surely, why do you need to study any further? And by the way, her brother did a postgraduate education. So, the differences were stark. And as I then look at the journey from that point, because she always regrets not having the opportunity for education and a career, to seeing her joy when she sees her daughter on the cover of the Fortune magazine, it is truly remarkable to reflect on that generational change. And for me, gives me a huge sense of responsibility for how we need to make this place that much better for the next generation. And so certainly, Anu, as I think about your goals with ACE, and you talked about my role as a founding advisor, that mission is so important to me. And when you asked me to be here, the answer only could be one. That was yes. So that's on the personal side, my optimism. And on the professional side, I think a message as everyone comes together for this career fair and career journey is to not be afraid to make unconventional career choices. If you look at my journey and if you look at what you Google, what's on LinkedIn, it seems quite perfect and quite meticulously planned. Started as an engineer and a product leader, then a business leader, now an investor, and soon to be the author. Right? Feels meticulously planned. And I remember like the first time I was recognized in one of these most powerful women list, someone asked me, Kirthiga, had you always planned out your career, and was this your aspiration and your ambition? And I looked at her and I said, of course, yes. And then I paused and I laughed and I said, okay, if you believe even that for even a second, um, you don't know me well enough and you don't know these journeys well enough. In that, growing up, I did not know that I would go to the US to do my master's, then want to aspire to get my MBA. And even if you think about when I left Facebook, I actually thought I'd go be a CEO of an early stage startup, but instead, I joined as the first female investment partner at Softbank Investment Advisors, and it's been a tremendous journey. So don't be afraid of unconventional career choices. And one particular example, Anu, that I'll share is when I graduated from Stanford Business School. One would imagine that one graduates from one of the top business schools of the world, they get a title raise, a salary raise. I decided to go to a startup, and which meant going from being a director of engineering to being a line product manager, line individual contributor. I took a 40% pay cut because in a startup, the payout is in the equity. I remember talking to an executive recruiter and said, is this going to look bad on my resume? Going from a director of engineering and after Stanford Business School, I'm a product manager. And she said, if this is a short term move, yes. But if this is a long term move and this is something that you really want to do in an industry that you're passionate about, what you've done in the past will help you rise quickly enough that it won't matter. And sure enough, again, if you look at my resume, it'll say director of engineering and then director of product management because I did rise quickly through the ranks again. And it was something that shift was something I really wanted to do. I gave my heart to it. Um, and it then was a stepping stone for everything that I did after. So um, get advice from a lot of people, but truly listen to what you want to do, what drives you, what your passion is, and chart your unique path.
Oh, I mean, there's just so much to take in that, but and it leaves me even more inspired. I mean, I just feel that I've known you for such a long time, but every time I talk to you, there are these little discoveries which I make, which just resonate so beautifully in terms of the courage and conviction that you've kind of, somewhere just imbibed and carried out. I mean, it's not you thinking about it, it's just kind of been a natural part of your journey. The one thing which really stood out is unconventional choices. And you said, don't be afraid of making unconventional choices. When the whole drive with what your mom's gone through and how you've kind of, imbibed it and, almost, in a way that you're able to, combine it with a mission is beautiful. So, but coming back to this whole unconventional choice, and a lot of people who are listening to you today, could be in a situation where they're faced with multiples of these choices, and there are men and there are women today who are listening to you. So I'm going to dwell on it that a little bit. Your journey through, Motorola and an engineering company to the big CXO job in Facebook to SoftBank, and you seem to have done different things at different points of time. And it got me thinking that when I gave up my like so-called, we have this misperception of safe corporate career, which is never safe. Um, to start something on my own, it was a little nerve-wracking moment where you give up the safety of what you're used to, the comfort zone you're used to, and yet trying to do something different. And I was blessed to have a few mentors like you who helped me do that. But how do you really make that leap, and how do you overcome the fear of failure? How do you know that this will work, or probably you don't know it will work or not, but how do you yet pursue the path? What kept you going? So when I look at Facebook to SoftBank, it's a very different journey, and going into a VC world which willy-nilly is yet bereft of senior women like you. How did that come about, and what kept you going in that path?
Many things to unpack in that question. And if there was a phrase that comes to mind, it's actually a phrase that's in many Facebook posters across Facebook offices across the globe. And it is, what would you do if you weren't afraid? And I've also heard this phrased differently as, what would you do if success were guaranteed, right? I mean, just think of both those dimensions and whatever resonates with you. Um, and I would say my career and my journey has followed those phrases. One thing that I look back at is, and the advice that I would offer as people are thinking about their next career step, is to think in decades, right? We will all live to be 80, 90, 100 and beyond unless something untoward happens. So there's huge longevity. And we have, again, the president of the United States and the prime minister who are all, late 70s. So again, we have long careers and decades of impact ahead of us. So um, life is truly a marathon, not a sprint. And think about the impact of what you can have as you pursue a path over, that decade kind of time frame. Um, so for me, again, moving into investing was that decade kind of time frame. And as people move from what you call safe corporate jobs to things like entrepreneurial journeys, I often say the external world might look at those paths and for the first few years say, really, like she or he left this big, huge corporate job for this. And but then the 3-year mark, the 5-year mark, and then the 7-year mark, as they follow their passion and their mission, they look back and say, oh my God, like this was a big mission. So I'd say stay indexed on that big mission. Think about life in decades and think about the transformative impact that you can have. I remember a story from Prakash Iyer's Habits of Winning. And he writes a story that I'm sure everyone has heard of in different version. But paraphrasing, it's about a woman who's walking through Rome. She sees people working with bricks. She stops the first person, says, what are you doing? He frowns at her and he says, can't you see? Like I'm putting one brick on top of another. She stops the second person and he smiles and he says, oh, I'm building a wall. And she stops the third person and he beams at her and he says, I'm building the tallest cathedral in Rome. Right? Each of them, Anu, are doing the same thing in terms of the activity, but the perspective and the vision that they have is very different. And to me, that has always been what has driven my changes, is having that long-term vision of what this could add up to. Um, Even things like at Softbank Vision Fund, we started tracking board diversity in our companies, and what gets measured begins to matter, right? And you make change one, change two, change three, and what that can add up in a matter of decades and truly driving that shift for board diversity is immense. So those are some perspectives to keep in mind, and certainly that has helped me as I have navigated my career journey.
I love the story that you narrated. And, very often when I jumped off to become an entrepreneur, my mother really worried about saying, again, she's gone mad. Well, she thought I was mad since I was born anyway. But, till now, she worries about, are you getting paid? Like, it is really important for her that I am, secure, and it's from a duty of care. And every time I try and
बेटियों की
explain,
शादी करनी है, बच्चों की education, how are you going to pay for?
मतलब इंडिपेंडेंट मतलब चल रहा है ना ठीक ठाक मतलब आंटी शी इज वेरी वरिड कि आई एम जस्ट पुटोइंग एंड बर्निंग कैश एवरीवेयर बट so it's a big thing for her कि पैसे से मिल रहे हैं you are secure and all of that and but this whole vision and the mission the way you've described I've never been able to explain it to her so I'm certainly going to borrow that from you and explain it to her in the language you've described so thank you so much for sharing that and which beautifully brings me to the transition you're making from Softbank which I know has been a wonderful journey for you for 3 years and you've done some remarkable stuff and the most outstanding one for that period is for me is WeWork where you've been on the board and some exemplary things have happened during the journey of that company but now you're transitioning from there to doing various other things apart from of course the big one being an author so one is how did the transition come about? And then I certainly want to dwell the next 30 minutes on the author in you and what you're trying to create there.
Totally, totally. So let me talk actually a minute or so on my SoftBank journey, and that actually sets the stage for what's next for me. My 3 years at SoftBank was truly incredible. It is an extraordinary platform that provides impact that I truly cannot think of another platform that would have enabled that much impact. My focus there was enterprise frontier health tech investments, and I got to work with bold, ambitious founders who were redefining the future in all of these different sectors: gaming, crypto, you name it. Um, and The opportunity to be part of that vision and exemplify SoftBank Vision Fund mantra is shared vision, amplified ambition. So these are founders with whom we share a vision with, and how is it that we can help amplify their ambition? To be able to live that every single day was really special. In addition to the investments, so I led about $1 billion in new investments, and along with my board roles like WeWork, it was a portfolio of over 5 billion. So tremendous opportunity to really influence the future. In addition to that, was very meaningful was being a sponsor of our DEI efforts within the firm, whether it was things that we did internally to drive more diverse hiring within the firm, working very closely with our CHRO, Catherine Lenson, who was the sponsor of our Diversity Council, to work across the ecosystem, like what I mentioned in terms of board diversity, to being a sponsor of our Emerge Accelerator program for brilliant companies by diverse founders. These were all very meaningful to me in terms of what SoftBank is doing and what I had the opportunity to work on. So then with all of that, your question is, okay, what drove that next step? Honestly, to me, it's about the builder in me, and being with so many entrepreneurs day in and day out, that entrepreneurial urge was continuing to rise by the day. I thought about starting my own fund last year, and that's how the entrepreneurial venture has manifested itself for me. That leverages both my investing career as well as my operating background. Is go to my own fund. I'm both an investor and an operator, so I thought about this last year, but last year was too soon in the SoftBank journey. Plus, you spoke about WeWork. The firm was going through a tough time at that stage. And I don't believe in leaving firms at low points. And so it was just important for me to help build out and contribute to that turnaround and that transformation. And fast forward to today, all of the portfolio companies are doing well. WeWork had its IPO 2 weeks ago, and that was really a very special, very emotional moment, and one that really belongs to all of the employees of WeWork who have worked so hard through this global pandemic to get the company to where it is. So with all of that as a backdrop, it was time for me to start thinking about, okay, now is a good time for me to pursue that entrepreneurial dream of mine, which is what I'm jumping into. So 2022 is about, fundraising, doing my own fund. But between now and then, I have a book to write. I've had this contract, Anu, from 3 years ago with my agent about writing this book, and Jaypriya from Jacaranda has been very, very patient in checking in with me. I have promised her that it's going to be a better book now than if I had written it 3 years ago. And it is one of those things of, if I get hit by a bus today, what's one thing I would regret not doing? I feel that that's a book that I can uniquely write, and it's important for me to be able to write that book. So writing the book, also launching a SPAC, and then the fundraise. So again, I feel very blessed for all of the opportunities.
Superwoman syndrome, and you're truly one in that sense. So, I mean, I'm getting goosebumps when I'm talking to you about the number of things that you're doing, and it's just so motivating for me to keep telling my mom I'm on the right path, because there are more mad people like me out there. So, thank you, Kriti.
No, I know. And by the way, I also have to say another really important big rock is my daughter is a junior in high school, and this is a time that things really pick up as they start thinking of college applications back in the United States. My older child just started her as a freshman in her undergrad at RISD, Rhode Island School of Design. So managing that transition, being there for my daughter through her junior year, even if it is just to be there when she says, "Oh, can you wake me up at 5:30 in the morning?" Or "It's a busy day. Can you please take the dog for a walk?" Even if I can be there just for that, I feel that's a very important role that I'm playing.
There's only one advice I can give you is enjoy that, because I have reached that stage with my children where they're like, "Oh, you're traveling. Oh, you're going to be away from home. Wow, what a nice feeling to have," because they feel so liberated. So it's like we see her not. It's just fine. And the other day I was telling them, because mine are a little older and one is working and one is also a freshman, said, why don't you guys come and work with me for a while? And they were like, no. I think it'll be a disaster, mom, working with you, because, there'll be fireworks all the time. So just enjoy that. They all go through it. And so delighted to see that happiness on your face about what you're being able to do for her. So the book, Opportunities Engine, I mean, the name is like powerful. And, it just gives me this feeling of, this, as I sit here, there's this huge oyster of opportunities out there. But, and I'm so delighted you've decided to pen this as a, as in terms of reflection of your learnings and experiences. But I would like our audience today to get a bit of a sneak preview in terms of what is it about, and then I'll go into a little bit about some of the drivers and the highs and lows, which drove to you writing this book as well.
The book is has really three goals. Goal number one is to share what I've learned about building high growth, sustainable businesses and teams. The core story is the Facebook India journey, where, as you mentioned, I started as employee number one and was managing director of Facebook India and South Asia for the first 6 years of Facebook's operations here in India. So that's the core of the story, but it builds on all of my experiences over the decades in different sectors, different industries, as an operator, as an engineer, a business leader, a product leader. Plus, it also now brings in my perspective as an investor and having seen many high growth, sustainable businesses, both what worked and what didn't, and wanting to share lessons often learned the hard way. So that's one key goal. The other goal is to share my personal journey, and we have a huge diversity crisis in tech, and you talk about the story and the numbers of how things really dwindle so quickly when you start from the entry level and look at what's happening at the C level. So my goal is to help drive that pendulum shift and to accelerate that journey through sharing of my personal journey. And three, it is about celebrating the people who help build Facebook India, both internal and external. Um, it truly takes a community, it truly takes a village. And this was a story of tapping into the brilliance of people, both internal and external, and co-creating. And that's a very important part of this book as well. When I started Facebook India, I'd actually committed to interviewing the first 100 hires. And the first 100 hires, as you know very well, is a lot of interviewing to get to the first 100 people. And I think that's where I spent 80% of my time in the first few months as we started Facebook India. So as part of this journey, I'm actually having conversations with a lot of those first 100 people, getting their stories, their reflections, their learnings, and how has that influenced them personally and professionally. And that has been a huge source of energy and inspiration for me. So I'm really looking forward to bringing all of those stories together.
Wow, can't wait. I mean, happy to do any, editing or any other, help you need. I'm just so looking forward to reading about it. So Facebook, I mean, always a hot seat. I mean, it's just, not what's happening recently, but even at the time you would have come in India, it's one of those active and there's always something happening. And, being the first employee setting this up, tell us about those tricky moments. And there may be plenty, but one or two that stood out for you, which kind of tested your tenacity and resilience and made you a better leader.
Totally. Um, I'll actually start with a story that is one of my favorite Facebook India stories. And I'll share that as first, because stories like that are what gave me the strength and the resilience to tackle the challenges. Um, it's um, Pallavi Gupta, founder of Maskalandar fast food chain. She came up to me at an event one time and she said, Kirthiga, I have to tell you a Facebook story. It's great how anywhere you go, someone always has like a Facebook story, an Instagram story, or a WhatsApp story to share with you. In this case, she told me, she said, most of my cooks, now we are talking 2013, okay? And she said, most of my cooks, they don't know how to read or write, but they know how to use the phone and they know how to use Facebook. And for me, I was taken aback. I said, they don't know how to read, they don't know how to write. What are they doing on the platform? She sent me their profile pages, and sure enough, I could see sharing videos, pictures of their children, enjoying the festivities, interacting with content, interacting with brands. And to me, it was a powerful story and reality of the mission of giving people the power to share and making the world more open and connected. And this is just one story of so many others of communities being created around social media and Facebook in particular at that time, and then of course WhatsApp since then. So you keep that on one hand, and then I think about incidents like one day I had a full packed day of meeting with clients, partners, meeting with the team. And that was the day when someone had made a spoof of Lata Mangeshkar and Satil Tendulkar, and it was going viral, of course, on social media. And of course, there were people mobilizing to protest. And I heard that there would be a protest outside the Facebook office. So instead of whatever I was planning to do that day, I spent my day and certainly the morning with the security team saying, okay, what are we going to do? We had to make decisions about, are people going to come into work, not come into work? And we actually, I think, asked everyone to work from home. So it's about dealing with the day-to-day challenges. And through all of this, a principle and a philosophy that has really helped me is something that I heard from my very first manager, Betsy Zeller, in my engineering job at Silicon Graphics, where she said, Kirthiga, focus on the success of your clients, your organization, and your team, and therein lies your success. And in the case of my work with Facebook, it was about how can we make the users on the platform successful in terms of what are they coming to the platform for, and how is it that we can serve them, the developers, the advertisers, and of course then the organization and the team. So keeping that principle in mind and always operating with those hats was something that I have found very powerful in each of my roles, and was a framework that kept me going every single day, Anu.
So, Kritika, moving on to the next question, opportunities engine. I mean, it's such a powerful title, and it almost makes me somehow it just makes me feel very energetic and want to run. And it's almost this feeling of there's lots happening out there, and there are lots of opportunities. Now, you may say I have FOMO, which I probably do. I want to be there everywhere. But how did this title come about, and what message are you really trying to convey to people through this?
Totally. So we had a bunch of discussion, as you can imagine, about what the title of the book should be that truly captures the story and the message that I want to convey. Brainstorm on a number of different ones. Actually, think in decades to the message that I gave earlier was one possibility. Co-creation, empowerment, where some other themes that we were thinking about, but we really honed in on this title, the opportunity engine, because at the core, that's what the book is all about. The context, Anu, that you and I are having this conversation in is the context of massive technology transformation. And the pace of change is only accelerating. When I started with Facebook in India, we had 100 million people on the internet, and now we have over 600 million. And by the way, this is not over decades. This is in a matter of 10 years. That's the pace of change that we're seeing. And for everyone in the audience, I mean, just think about the next 10 years and the kind of change that we're going to bring. In that context, how can we really drive opportunity, right? Opportunity for people, for businesses, for communities, for societies. People are connecting in very different ways. The global pandemic only accelerated all of those shifts. And so this book talks about how each one of us as individual professional and leaders in that context of massive technology change can truly leverage that change to drive the impact that we all want to see. And as I think about all of the big problems that the world is facing, we are sitting in the midst of a huge, climate conference that's happening at a global basis. How is it that we can use technology to drive our opportunity and to drive the change that we want to see? Changes everywhere. Again, sitting from where I did with SoftBank Investment Advisors, whether it's in the area of autonomous vehicle, whether it's food tech, whether it's ag tech, there's just so much happening. And I am a strong believer in the use for technology for good. How is it that each one of us can drive that change? I know is a key part of what the book is about.
So powerful, very, very powerful. And I agree in the way you've described, how tech is connecting to climate change and planet and humanity. I mean, it's just the whole thing is, bigger than what even I can probably think of. But, you talked about technology, transformation, absolutely spot on. What we find, even on our platform, I mean, we've just launched Academy, which is our skilling platform. And Tara, as you know, our conversational AI bot is all over trying to talk to women about skilling and careers and many other things. But what we find is there is yet a bit of a hesitation, especially from our women members of the community to look at product tech or and it's I don't know whether it's solely driven by cultural norms. It could be a combination, or is it driven by the fact that there's just more men there, so why should I need to get there? Or it's simply about my aspiration. I find a lot of women coming to a platform trying to specialize in HR or digital marketing, but fewer women take up courses in AI, ML, the more progressive stuff which is happening. So I mean, I haven't. We're yet trying to do a root cause analysis of this, and we probably take a little longer. But for a lot of women out there and listening to you today, as a computer science engineer, as somebody who's been through the tech journey, what's your message to them?
Anu, I do think there's a big societal factor at play, and I want to address that right off the bat. One of the anecdotes, stories that I remembered was my daughter, for her third year birthday, she wanted like a Spider-Man birthday party. The party organizer said, "Oh, is it a boy?" I said, "No, it's a girl," right? When she was 4, she wanted a SpongeBob, same question. When she was 5, she wanted a Batman, same question. But at this time, my daughter at 5, she said, "Mom, should I also get a Barbie cake? Because will people laugh at me if I have a Batman cake?" Right? This is at 5 years old. Society is already telling people about what girls should do and what boys should do. So I want to just acknowledge how deeply seated that is, and for all of us as parents, uh, as 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 friends, as uncles and aunts, just to keep that in mind. And if boys want to play with dolls, and if girls want to play with trucks, let's encourage each one of them and the diversity that they offer. So that's on one hand. On the other hand, from where I sit, I truly believe that there's a huge diversity crisis in tech. Right? As I think about even fields like AI and data, where I spent a lot of time, the numbers are dismal, right? Even with the largest organizations like Google and Facebook, 10 to 15% of their AI staff are women. And we really need to have a diverse community building products because that's when you will get human-centered, innovative products that really represent the population. So it's essential that we change the needle. So I think for the audience, as the audience is thinking about, should I go in for that STEM class or a non-STEM class, if you have that inclination, really push yourself, because the world needs you and more of you to help drive the shift that we really need to see. So push yourself. You have so much access to information now. Seek your role models across the world. Reach out to people. Reach out to people. Take advantage of the many tech talks, the many resources that are available on the WIT platform, and really push yourself to reach out for that next level, because the world really needs this change.
No, thank you. And you set the trend. So I think those encouraging words, I'm sure, will land rightly with a lot of women who are listening to you today. I mean, for myself, I mean, I'm not a techie, I'm not even an engineer. And, when we started with, actually probably did all these free courses on Coursera. One day I enrolled for an edX Python course, but I'd never done coding in my life. But I just wanted to discover, honestly, it was really looked like Greek to me in the way the code was appearing. And gradually I kind of got used to it. So I understand the basics, but I kind of, yet I would say I'm also work in progress in some ways. But at the same time, I was talking to another CEO of a tech firm, and I said, what is it about this coding stuff that all the techies get excited? How much ever they become experienced, the code is the big thing. And he described it really beautifully for me. He said, Anu, it's like an art. So I can spend hours looking at a code because it's like an art. And, the beautiful thing is what comes out of it. And when I started to look at it like that, it is an art. And the way you kind of described it in terms of some of the social issues which women are faced are absolutely real, and they kind of restrict men and women to explore another part of themselves. So it's almost living a life which is all half, in that way. So thank you for sharing that. But coming back to you now in terms of personal stuff, and I'm conscious of the time, so I have two more questions. But and the first one being, what was, I find like a lot of women who are listening to you today, and, as we've done some of the surveys and the pulse checks, they're saying there's a bit of a mind block, on some of this stuff now, as you rightly said, could be socially. Tell us about anything which you had a mind block with, and how did you overcome it? I mean, like I have a mind block sometimes with cooking, unfortunately, not doesn't go down with my family, but I try.
I would say that I had to really work on guilt management when it came to uh, time with with children. And Sheryl Sandberg writes about this in the book Lean, about how guilt management is just as important for time management as time management. And I'll give two examples on how it played out. One, I remember the whole Facebook India team was on a Friday evening was going to see Dark Knight Rises again, and I was in two minds. I had been traveling a lot. Should I go or should I not go? And that afternoon, I called my husband and I said, I'm going to go for this movie because, the team doesn't usually do this. I really want to spend time with the team. And he's like, yeah, go have fun. I said, no, it's not like just have fun. I mean, I do know that I'm not spending time with the kids and I have not spent time with them for a long time. And he was a little puzzled by then. He said, okay, so come home and spend time with the kids. I'm like, no, I really want to go with the team. So he stopped me. He said, okay, if you want to go with the team, go have fun. If you want to be home, come home and have fun. Don't be in one place thinking about, do you want to be in the other place? Just be truly present. I wouldn't think about this so much and agonize about it so much. And that was a really important message for me to hear. And so I went out with the team and I had fun, and I came back and I made sure I had fun with the kids as well. And there are several other such examples where I had to really work on the guilt management part of things.
So no, that's wonderfully said, and I think it really resonates. And where we are just trying to be in multiple places all the time and feeling guilty about what we are not able to do. It's all about making the choices, right? Now, moving on to my last question. As somebody who's going to be, I am sure, a best-selling author, what's her favorite book?
My favorite book. I have a few of them. One, um, I actually really enjoyed Winning by Jack Welch. He spoke about the power of voice and the power of candor. So I've really enjoyed that one. I've spoken about habits of winning. Maybe there's something just about the title winning in book that gets me, but that's another of my favorite ones. And Anu, I am waiting for that autographed copy of Can We Have It All? I am waiting for that autographed copy from you as well.
Then my second edition. No, but oh, absolutely, anytime.
Anu, you
You
have to
know.
ask me about success mantras. So we're going to do that as one more question as well, because I do have a message for women.
So one last question, Kartika. I mean, you refer to "Can I have it all?" You really epitomize, as I said in the beginning, somebody who has it all. So tell us a little bit about your success mantras and what's got you here.
Let me share a few things on the personal side and then on the professional side. On the personal side, some key themes that I really want the audience to think about that has been successful for, or important for me. And it depends on the life stage that you're in. So, one, if you're in the single looking for a partner, know that the partner that you choose will be the most important career decision that you will make. I would not be here, Anu, if not for my husband and the support and the sacrifices that he has made for me, just as the sacrifices that I have made for him for his career ambition. All right. Then if you start thinking about, oh, do I want a family? Do I not want a family? And you're debating on those choices, I certainly know, Anu, that we spent a long time thinking, oh, are we ready? Are we not ready? And I postponed for the smallest reason. I'm going to a conference. I can't be pregnant, right? So I postponed it for the smallest reason. And then when we were ready, we discovered that things just don't happen just because you are ready. Yeah. And actually, both my girls were IVF girls, and I'm very, very grateful for the power of technology for the gift of motherhood. And my learning from that period, Anu, was that one, there is never a good time, and conversely, if that's something that's important for you, it's always a good time, and the universe has a way to conspire to make things happen for you and support you if that's what you choose to do. And my last message is once you have children, nothing will stress your multitasking abilities more than having children and having to juggle work and life. And there, I want to give the audience a power, the superpower of the and versus the tyranny of the or. I remember when my second child was born, I had to travel, and it was really important for me to nurse her just as I nursed the first one for the full year. And I was beginning to think, is this the time that people talk about where you have to make a choice between personal and professional life? And it struck me that actually I don't. So for the first year I traveled with her, I found daycare or something or the other happened to help support me through that journey. And I'm not saying, by the way, that people have to make the same crazy choices that I did. All that I'm saying is when things are presented as an or, just dig a little deeper. Sometimes it is truly this or that, but more often than not, with a little bit of thinking, a little bit of support, you can actually convert things into and get closer to that can you have it all. So those are some thoughts on the personal side. On the professional side, few things. One, dream big. I know it sounds cliche, but there's enough stat that shows that there is a delta in how women feel that they have to curb their aspirations. Um, there was a McKinsey study that showed that 36% of professionals at a certain level aspired for the C-level role. It was only half of that for women. Women like apply to roles if they match 100% of the job description. Men look at it, and if they match 60%, they think they're the next thing to slice bread for that role. This is just research, by the way, just research. And so dream big. If each one of you leave with pushing your dreams a little bit bigger, I think the purpose of this conversation would have been achieved. So dream big. One, know that you have huge power to drive change. Each of us have more power to drive change than we think possible. Use the power of voice for yourself and for others, and always, always be learning. Those are some things that have been instrumental for me that I hope are helpful for you.
That's beautiful. And I think it came straight from the heart, Kartika. I mean, I could see the emotion and the passion around what you were sharing. So thank you for sharing that with us. I think, we could go on and on, and I know we both have to move on to the next sessions, but I think just bringing this session to a close, you really epitomize, a woman of strength for me. And I think, to put it candidly, a strong woman knows that she has the strength enough for the journey, but a woman of strength knows that it is the journey where she will become strong. And I think in your journey lies the strength, which I'm sure is going to inspire us and just inspire any leader in the audience today. So thank you again for being with us, and thank you for giving us a sneak preview in Opportunities Engine. I'm sure we're all, not just me, but anybody listening to you today is looking forward to having the copy very, very soon. And thank you for sharing, some personal stories and insights into your life, which certainly have left me inspired, and I'm sure will leave the audience inspired as well. So thank you again for being with us.
A delight to be here, and I can't wait for the audience to take advantage of all of the insights, the introductions, the connections that you have lined up for them, Anu.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.